Welcome to today's webinar, which is Tech Roadmap for Industrial AI Investment Advice for Manufacturers. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Malavika Tohani, and I'm the Research Director for the Industrial Transformation Practice at Verdantix. Before I hand over to my co-hosts, John Harrington and Christoph Berlin, let me just tell you a little bit about Verdantix. So Verdantix is an independent research, data, and advisory firm, and we provide insight into technologies, digital technologies that can help solve some of the biggest challenges that you as businesses are facing today. Our research spans across 30 different domains, covering asset management, but also sustainable supply chains, digital grid technologies, and so on. With that, let me hand over to John and then to Christoph for a quick introduction.
Great. Thank you, Mal. I'm John Harrington, the Chief Product Officer and one of the co-founders at HighByte. Looking forward to this conversation. AI is near and dear to our hearts, and scaling it out, and the new technologies that are happening in the market right now are very exciting. HighByte is a data ops software company very much focused on the industrial space and how industrial companies can leverage data much more effectively and scale it out across their enterprises. I'll turn it over to Christoph.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. My name is Christoph Berlin, General Manager over here in Microsoft Core Engineering. I'm part of the Azure group, and I lead the overall product strategy for regulated industries. How do we think about industrial digitalization? How do we think about regulations all up, as well as how do we think about software development in these spaces? Because it's a little bit different than just going in there with cloud native and hoping that it works. So as part of that, I really appreciate you having me and looking forward to the conversation.
Great. All right, let's get started with today's webinar. So this is in 3 sections, the webinar today. So first, we're going to talk about why data management is foundational to AI and delivering AI value. The second is looking at some market trends. So at Verdantix, we conduct extensive surveys with the corporate buyers of AI technology, and we ask them about their budgets, their priorities, their preferences over the next 12 months. And I'll be showing you some results that we got from the survey. And the final section is the actual tech roadmap, which will talk about some of the enablers of industrial AI applications. So we all know that data, and that too good data, forms the backbone of delivering high quality analytics. Sorry, there is a bit of background noise. Christoph, John, can I ask you both to go on mute, please? Thank you. Thank you. All right. So again, we know that good data is the backbone of delivering high quality analytics. And at Verdantix, we define 3 main approaches based on where your firm is in terms of your digital and data maturity to achieve the success with digital transformation efforts, and especially with AI-based analytics. So the first one, and what we call it, is the kind of the initial stages of digital transformation. And this is really focused on connecting structured OT data like time series data or events data or control logs, and providing basic analytics. And this is, we say it's typically achieved through process historians and visualization tools, and also carries very minimal cybersecurity overhead. So these kind of data ops hubs are very quick to set up. They also enable role-specific data access, and you can visualize KPIs based on basic charts. But there is a downside to this basic approach. Scaling can be an issue, and this is where you can talk about the next kind of the shift, and what you can see here in this slide. So this approach, which is the second approach, represents a bit of a shift towards hybrid edge to cloud architecture. And this is enabled by using and implementing DataOps platforms like HighByte's Intelligence Hub. And I know John can talk to it a little bit more. And what the DataOps solutions really do is that they align OT data with business operations through unified namespaces and hierarchical models. And then what you can do with these sorts of, with UNS and these models is that you can do more sophisticated machine learning driven analytics. And what DataOps platforms really, again, enable or offer is they take away much of the IT/OT integration work. They offer out-of-the-box connectors for historians, ERP systems, MES systems, and other sort of business and industrial systems that exist within an industrial facility. And this abstraction really enables the rapid deployment of advanced analytics and AI capabilities. I'll pause there. John, do you have any additional insights to talk about the Intelligence Hub specifically here?
Yeah, thanks, Mel. I guess the other thing that I would say is that, certainly standardizing data allows us to scale it out. And AI needs data in order to do anything, in order to react and to work. But in order to standardize data, you often need domain experts from the data sources, which in the industrial space is often the OT team. So the challenge with implementing AI in the industrial space is how do we get the domain expertise out of the OT team and into the data, because the data tends to be very raw. It comes from multiple different sources. And so that's where we see DataOps platforms really playing a key role, is that they often get deployed at the edge in the sites where the OT team, with an application that the OT team can be familiar with and can easily contextualize and standardize this data so that it then becomes usable to the AI and to the applications on top of it. So I think the persona is a really key and critical part of, you need the domain experts from the source systems, and you need a solution that's designed for them, as opposed to a solution that's designed for, for a developer who may be working in the cloud or whatnot. So, coupling the DataOps platforms with other technologies makes it very, makes it scale much faster and makes it much more usable.
Thank you, John. And you can see this one takes it to the next level, which is mainly targeting global enterprise scale deployments, which is leveraging a DataOps ontology. So rather than just a hierarchy to unify OT, ET, and information data, this ontology really unifies different types of data, whether that's OT, ET, or IT. And such an ontology, also known as like the industrial knowledge graph, what it does is it delivers interconnected domain adapted data models that allows buyers like yourselves to make decision and also build automations on top, which is kind of like developing a digital data twin. And so rather than just standardizing tag names or hierarchies, which we saw in the first approach in the earlier slide, these ontologies define concepts, relationships, and contextual meanings, allowing for more flexible analytics, especially in complex environments like industrial facilities, where the data relationships are not strictly structured or hierarchical. And this is where hyperscalers like Microsoft play a key role in enabling these sorts of ontologies and also advanced analytics. Christoph, do you want to add to that?
Sure, happy to add a couple of thoughts in all of this. As you just said yourself, as well as John alluded to it as well, it's a very complex environment. So there's not a single solution. There's not a single data source that solves it all. As you look at this visualization here, you realize it is a non-trivial challenge that we all face. So we as the hyperscalers, and yes, I represent Microsoft, but quite honestly, even our colleagues from AWS and Google and everyone else, we have our role to play, but we also partner in all of this because we don't have the process knowledge. To John's point, the process knowledge sits with the OT team, sits with the folks on site. But at the same time, what we can do is we can really help bring all of this data structure and process knowledge into a scalable system. So we can provide the graph engines behind it. We can provide pretty much the ability to automatically map it over. One of the things that is currently taking up a lot of speed is how can you actually use agentry in order to really maneuver data better? How can you augment it and all these things? So in other words, we as the hyperscalers, we're looking at this one is like we play a role in all of this, hopefully a very important role, but it is really about working together with partners like HighByte and with the industry together in order to say, how does this modular system really work together? Because at the end of the day, as I mentioned before, and I will mention it again, there are two aspects that are important. One is there is no data, no AI. And the second one is there is not a single tool, platform, or anything else that can do it all. It's just a too complex task in order to get there. And I think this modular architecture that we're all aiming for is exactly what is really accelerating this overall journey.
That is a very interesting point there, that there is no one vendor doing everything or doing it to the level that's required. So partnerships are the way to go forward. It's collaboration that's key going forward for the AI space. Great. With that, we are going to go into a poll question. Where are you on your industrial AI journey? %57%, a high percentage of people, nearly 60% saying experimenting with some success. Ooh, it's just shifted. 37% saying planning. I think for sure experimenting with some success and planning are the top two. It would be interesting to see what are some of those use cases or where you're applying or experimenting with some success. Also, that reminds me, please do put in your questions in the Q&A box. We will answer as many as possible towards the end of this webinar. All right, moving on. So just wanted to share some market trends. As I mentioned, at Verdantix, we speak to over 300 executives across diverse roles within operations, maintenance, engineering, process safety, and IT globally at a wide range of manufacturing firms. And we ask them about their budgets, their priorities, and their technology preferences over the next 12 to 24 months. This is some data that we published early this year. We conducted these interviews back in October, November of 2024. And actually, an updated version of this is in the field right now. So I'm expecting some changes to some of these data points when we collect the new data this year. But again, still interesting to see here that 86% of the respondents see AI analytics as being transformational, with 2/5 considering Gen AI to be very significant in transforming their operations. And this resonates when you look at the right-hand side of the slide as well, right? With 74% of the respondents saying that they're using Gen AI to varying extents within their organization. 26% are saying that they're not looking at Gen AI at all. But again, it will be interesting for us to compare the same question and see what the responses have been this year as compared to what it was 12 months ago. And I feel there will be some good movement in this, especially as a lot of industrial software vendors have at least introduced Gen AI co-pilots as part of their solutions. And we do see that these figures would have or should have changed in the last 12 months. The next slide here talks a little bit around what's driving adoption of AI and also some barriers that are facing, users. So we spoke to about 250 respondents, specifically in IT roles, and asked them a lot around the AI adoption. And as you can see here, almost half, 47% of respondents identify successful AI pilot projects as the most significant factor in accelerating AI investments. An additional 40% said that they are a significant influence. So by demonstrating like tangible benefits, successful pilots, it certainly builds organizational confidence. Also, any sort of risks are mitigated, and this justifies any further investment in AI initiatives. So that was the top kind of driver. You can also see increased internal AI expertise. So 85% of IT executives believe that by increasing internal AI expertise will significantly speed up AI investments. Of course, again, a lot of organizations are still learning on how to do AI implementations and even coming up with a strategy around AI. And so having those sort of skilled workers who are aware of these, new developments and can successfully execute them and implement them is certainly an added advantage. And the last one is success stories from firms in our industry. That domain expertise piece, I know we spoke about it just now, John mentioned it as part of the DataOps solutions and what they enable. But again, showing success stories, client benefits, and really highlighting the ROI from these solutions and projects helps drive more projects in turn. On the barrier side, the first one is, and the top one is complexity of AI technologies. So what our survey has pointed out is that obviously AI technologies, especially some of them, and we'll see them in the other slides that I talk about in especially the tech roadmap, they are at different maturity levels. They are at different adoption levels. And where we hear some new development every day, it does form as a barrier to successful implementation as well as adoption of certain AI technologies, especially within industrial facilities. The second one is around cost of technology consultants. So I guess here it's about working with service providers and some of the projects, of course, being quite long, resource intensive, time intensive, and that can act as a big barrier to executing some of the AI technologies as well. And the final one is around the cost of AI software. It is certainly coming down every day, but again, what we've seen is a lot of uptake in AI, especially Gen AI and LLMs, is if it's incorporated or built in within a solution that's being offered rather than being a heavy project that they have to execute on top. John, Christoph, I don't know if you had any inputs or wanted to add to the barriers and drivers.
The only thing that I would add is that although certainly the AI technologies are very complex, I think it's getting a lot easier as compared to, say, 10 years ago. Certainly the problems that we're trying to solve are getting more complex, but the technology is becoming, especially as we get more and more familiar with it in our non-business world or non-industrial world, utilizing LLMs and whatnot, applying that back into the industrial space, it just feels like people are starting to really see the light and get comfortable with it. And so it certainly is complex, but it's much easier than if you were trying to implement this 5 or 10 years ago. So that's exciting. I think the consultants we're seeing more and more companies adopting the technologies and using consultants. So though there's cost to it, I think there's a lot of value as well. Christoph, I don't know if you had other.
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts on top of it, and fully agreeing with you. I think there are two aspects to technology in all of this, or how to leverage this technology. One is, and there's a very healthy chat conversation in the chat going on, and it's like preparing data for AI, which is one aspect of all of this, and there's another one, leveraging AI in order to actually get healthy data. So if you look at the investments, and this is a fundamental shift to, let's say, 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, one of the aspects is that you really want to start to embrace is leveraging, let's call it Gen AI as a buzzword here right now, really as a means to actually get to this point. There are incredible advancements in time series forecasting. There are incredible experiences in quality management that is entirely managed by small language models and all these things. So in other words, it is not only about what is the barrier to get there, but quite honestly embracing the technology in order to actually help with the process itself. There's always this aspect that I tell all the customers is like, don't build agents yourself. Agents will build agents. And this is one of those aspects that you really come in and really want to embrace. That say, how does it help you in order to actually get to this journey? And by the way, when I talk about agents, build agents, it's not about Skynet. This is really about the aspect of how can you leverage the tools that you aim to use in order to actually simplify the journey itself. And then the technology curve as well as barrier also goes down.
Yeah, I think just building off of that, Christoph, like first generation of copilots, it seemed like it was an LLM that you could ask questions, and it had read your product documentation, so it was able to answer with product documentation type of answers. I think the next generation of copilots is don't answer how to do things, but let me just ask you to do it, and then it goes and does it for you. And that's in the configuration of the software, of the the configuration of the AI technology. We often refer to it as AI for data ops, and then there's a whole concept of how do I then use AI on the data, which we consider kind of data ops for AI, which is there's huge opportunity. That's where the real opportunity is. Ultimately, we're putting in place infrastructure to drive the value of the AI to help us improve our business. So it's the co-pilot for the operator. It's the co-pilot for the quality engineer who's trying to analyze what's going on the factory floor to produce higher yield and drive down the cost. So I think that's the real exciting part.
No,
I may be getting ahead. Sorry.
No.
Go ahead.
I mean, I just wanted to, because I heard Christoph talking about, and some of the comments there talking about the cleanliness of data. I thought it's absolutely essential to show this slide, which is just the next slide. And some of the things, John, that you were talking about as well. We say it's become easy with data ops solutions, other data management solutions, and AI to now go from industry 3.0 to 4.0. 4.0 has become a lot more accessible, and whatever amount of technologies is part of that 4.0. But yes, I just shared the top challenges that came out of our survey. There is a lot more data points in where that survey came from. So security was a big issue there. Governance, it's another key one, and we are going to talk a lot about data governance next year as part of our research as well. So certainly everything there in the chat resonates with us. the previous slide that highlighted the top challenges were not just from industrial facilities, but across the board, so retail, customers, and so on. But this one specifically focuses on industrial end users. And so, Christoph, you made a good point about the data quality issue in your comments over there, but it does keep coming up. Lack of trust in the insights generated, which is very closely linked with poor quality or incomplete data, as some of the biggest barriers in successful industrial AI projects or implementing successful industrial AI projects. But absolutely, these barriers are going down. And we talk a lot around explainable AI at Verdantix, and we also keep quizzing the vendors about how you arrived at the insights. What's the data sitting behind it? How have you trained your algorithms and models? And I'm hoping that all of those sorts of explainability factors go into improving the trust in the insights that's generated. Great. We have another poll question, which we would appreciate if everybody took. And this is around challenges. So what challenges are you currently facing related to the implementation of industrial AI solutions? Security and privacy concern seems to be the highest. Whoop, it's changed. Lack of data strategy or buy-in from leadership. Interesting one. Digital maturity of personnel. Quite evenly split, I have to say. The challenges shows that all the challenges are quite challenges for everybody here, depending on, I guess, your organization. Any surprises there, John, Christoph, in the data?
John, why don't you start?
Well, I was just noticing that edge compute doesn't appear to be a limitation. Yeah. I question whether that's because they have plenty of compute at the edge or whether it's because they're doing most of their AI projects in the cloud, which I suspect. I think we very much see the lack of data strategy as a challenge. Traditionally in the OT world or in the industrial world, people have a very application-centric view of deploying solutions. So we're going to deploy MES, we're going to deploy CMMS, we're going to deploy ERP, and everyone kind of focuses around that as opposed to data as a strategy, which is where I think people have to get for AI. It's just too ubiquitous across the site to enterprise. So I think data strategy is one area that we've been talking about a lot lately. So yeah, this is and digital maturity of personnel. We see that, especially when you get outside of corporate and you get down to the sites and they're trying to use these tools, their digital maturity is often much lower than the corporate team's maturity and desires. So that becomes a challenge. That's where we've seen system integrators be a great support.
But we're also seeing, in terms of attracting new talent, that digital, being a digital company and advertising it as being like digital first really helps in attracting the talent. And I think there was a study done by the Labor Association in the US, which showed that if you were really pushing yourself as a digital first company, it did attract a lot more of the newer workforce with the skills and so on, rather than them perceiving US being maybe stuck in the dark ages a little bit. So I guess it's a double-edged sword in a way.
So from just adding to this, I think one of the very obvious points here is that there's not a single thing that keeps people up at night. It is pretty much it is all over the entire opportunity, because it's actually understandable. There are security concerns. How do we actually think about previously isolated zones? How do we actually bring them connected? We want connectivity, but we don't want to expose or introduce more risk. There's this aspect from the leadership. Can they keep up and all this stuff? The challenge that I see, or not so much the challenge, the recommendation that I would have is actually to flip all of these challenges around and to say what must be true in order to get there. Because there's one aspect that's absolutely clear, is like we have entered the fifth industrial revolution. It's not even the fourth. The fourth we have to have been for quite some time. We have entered the fifth industrial revolution, where we look at the next let's call it wave of innovation, in order to really simplify and, quite honestly, fundamentally upheave business operations. Generative AI and AI in general is not so much about this fundamentally new business use case. It is really more about how can I do more with less? How can I really go into this point of how can I run my business operations more effectively? How can I replace hard skills, because hard skills will die, soft skills will survive, and all these things. So as you look at these poll questions, which are very insightful, and I really appreciate it, the questions that we as an industry and we as the players and the leaders and all of that should really ask ourselves, what must be true? What do we need? So, for example, from a security concern, and it's like, what else do we need? I personally will, and I know that I will upset quite a few folks with the following statement. While appreciating the zoning architecture, I don't think that it was ever secure in the first place. That doesn't mean that I can just replace it. No, I have to work on the next generation in order to actually make it more secure. I don't only have to think about horizontal security, I have to think about vertical security and all these things. The same is with AI. The AI on what is in here with regards to data quality and all these things. What is good enough? What actually provides business value versus really thinking about clean data? So in other words, it is really about this aspect to embrace that we are in this fifth industrial revolution, and to say, what do I need to actually get there? Microsoft plays their role, if you believe it or not. If not, then use someone else. It's also fine. Someone like HighByte has a very particular role. The companies have a role. But again, it is more about the mindset of how do we embrace it? Because quite honestly, we will not be able to ignore it much longer.
Great. Thank you, Christoph. All right, let's move on to the last section, which is actually talking about the enablers of industrial AI applications. I know we've addressed quite a few of these already, but let's go through some of them again. So here is the tech roadmap that we have produced at Verdantix, which shows the different enablers of AI applications, all the way from edge computing. You can see Gen AI Copilot, you can see quantum computing. And this tech roadmap we've developed mainly to help senior managers in aligning their AI investments with existing IT infrastructure, and also balancing it with any sort of emerging innovations. So what is this tech roadmap showing you? To go into a little bit more details about that. So the tech roadmap really provides a very standardized framework to guide technology adoption among corporate decision makers. So we've based this analysis on a variety of sources. So we've done desk research, we've conducted large-scale surveys, and also we've had in-depth interviews with suppliers, with customers, as well as industry experts. I know people might have their own opinion about where some of these technologies should appear, but this is what we've produced after all of these discussions and research. And we analyze these different technologies basically on three levers. The first one is tech maturity. So whether the technology is in R&D phase, is it in a growth phase, is it in a mature or declining phase? We also look at the business value offered. I mean, we were just in the chat mentioning buy-in from leadership. So proving ROI and value is extremely important. So we've taken that into account here. So the business value offered can be high, medium, or low of that particular technology. And the final one is the pace of innovation. So we've analyzed it as less than 2 years, 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10, and 10 plus years. And what does pace of innovation really mean is the time for the technology, time the technology will take to move into the next life cycle phase. So let's say, how long is it going to take a technology that's currently in R&D phase to go into launch phase? So that depicts the pace of innovation. So as you can see here, we've clubbed the AI tech roadmap or enablers into these 4 main categories. The first one being infrastructure and computation. So we're talking about edge computing, cloud platforms, hyperscale cloud platforms, and quantum computing as part of infrastructure and computation. Data management includes a host of different technologies there. Again, I'm not going to go through each of these. That's quite a long one. I know you're able to download the tech roadmap that we produce. So please do read it at your own pace and whenever you have availability. Also looking at some AI and ML techniques, and final ones around the human AI interaction piece. All right, let's jump into the first one, which is around infrastructure and computation. And as I said, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but let's look specifically around the hyperscale cloud platforms. The way we define hyperscale cloud providers is that they offer a very comprehensive suite of computing resources, storage, networking, databases, and advanced AI services accessible via the internet. And how does it apply to AI, industrial AI applications specifically, is that hyperscale cloud platforms offer very scalable infrastructure, which is crucial for real-time analytics, AI model training, and efficient collection and management of IIoT data. We believe hyperscale cloud platforms is in the growth phase. They're fully commercialized, widely adopted across diverse industrial AI applications. Christoph has been talking about that. Across manufacturing, energy, logistics, so wide range of industries. Also, hybrid and multi-cloud strategies are becoming increasingly prevalent within industries as well. So, reflecting the need for flexible and scalable solutions. Finally, in terms of business value, we feel that hyperscale cloud platforms provide high business value. They can efficiently manage large data sets and also enable the real-time processing, seamlessly integrating with any sort of legacy systems, as well as sensors and real-time data that's coming through. So what does this enable? Why are we saying that the business value is high? Is because the development time to deliver some of these AI-driven services like remote monitoring or predictive analytics is certainly accelerated by using these platforms. There's also robust security and compliance frameworks that mitigate those sort of risks. And the global data center reach simplifies the scaling aspect across different industrial facilities and also reduces the upfront costs. So for us, certainly it's a key one. It's a big enabler of AI and advanced AI analytics. Christoph, let me pause there. I'm sure you have a lot of things to add here.
Well, we only have so much time. So at the end of the day, let me try to be succinct in all of this. So naturally, yes, the hyperscalers are in the growth phase. I think there is no denial on all of this. But again, and I just wanted to pretty much reiterate what we said before. The hyperscale platforms can only do their part because at the end of the day, we optimize for large operations. We optimize for pretty much anything. We optimize for the open AIs, we optimize for the clouds, we optimize for data processing, we optimize for all of these things. We know very little about industrial DataOps. We know because data for us is data. And if someone knows what to do with that, is pretty much there. So one of the aspects that is fundamentally has changed for us, quite honestly, and I will be very self-reflectant of all of this, is that we also realize that there is more than just compute. There's more than just data processing or AI models or runtime or any of those other aspects. It is really about the aspect of how do you bring these building blocks together. Because you have every vendor, every solution provider, every customer has core competencies. A customer shouldn't have to worry about hyperscale compute build out. That is in the billions, if not trillions of dollars. That is our core competency. Vice versa, customers, we don't have the core competency that a customer has with regards to really knowing how the business process runs. Vice versa, someone like HighByte coming in to say it is like, we really can help to go from here to here. And so if you look at these aspects, is yes, the maturity curve is absolutely there. Not that I have no concern whatsoever. It is as part of this learning curve, however, it is also knowing that has been, and definitely will be a very heterogeneous landscape that over time will really have to move into this tethered building block analogy that I used earlier in the chat.
Thank you, Christoph. I know we want to leave some time for questions, so I'm going to kind of whiz through some of these ones because I know we have spoken about these before. So this is around industrial data ops. So this is around data management, and I want to just speak a little bit around industrial data ops. We see it being in the growth phase. So we did a market size and forecast trying to understand the spend on industrial data ops and data management solutions. And we said that the market will grow from about 2.1 billion in 2023 to nearly 6.1 billion in 2029. So over the next 4 or 5 years, that will be the tremendous growth that's seen. And I think we again spoke about it before, but what really industrial data ops solutions does is it streamlines the access to diverse databases, both in raw and semi-processed formats, enabling collaboration between different teams, whether it's data scientists, IT teams, operations and maintenance teams, so that they can leverage the data rapidly and also get the value out of the data quickly. John, anything to add here? I know we spoke about this quite a lot previously.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would add, so I agree 100% with Christoph. The industrial AI is a ecosystem play, right? It's not just one vendor. It's not you're going to go to one vendor and buy a solution and deploy it. It's I have to get my infrastructure in place. I'm going to have a cloud infrastructure. I'm going to have edge infrastructure. I'm then going to leverage different AI technologies. I'm going to leverage different data ops. And the need for data ops, I think, was highlighted in that last poll where people talked about data access, data quality, edge compute, data governance, security, data strategy. All of those come together in industrial data ops. I think that the more companies can fix that data plane, the faster they can deploy, the more secure they are, the higher the governance is. And so data ops provides that, right? So I think you nailed it with regards to the growth, with regards to the speed at which it's evolving, with regards to the value, because that's what's holding us back. That's what everyone just answered was holding them back in the previous poll question. So a lot of excitement, a lot of focus there.
And we're starting to see a lot of case studies and customer case studies, which again, we saw as important for people to start uptaking, these solutions. And we are now seeing actual benefits and ROI that's coming through as well with the use of these DataOps platforms.
Yep.
Great. The next one we're going to talk about is within the category of AI and ML, and we're talking about multimodal AI. So what do we mean by multimodal AI is it's a type of machine learning model which is designed to process and integrate information from multiple types of data. So, what we saw within that data ontology. So it can be different types of data like text or images or audio, even sensor data into a unified framework. We think multimodal AI is in the launch phase, especially within industrial AI. So there are AI labs like Google DeepMind and OpenAI that are showing quite impressive multimodal capabilities. But we think widespread product market fit for industrial use cases is still emerging. There are some industrial software providers who are integrating these models into their Gen AI co-pilots. A few of them are even using multimodal AI to monitor production lines and also provide digital work instructions. But it's still only a handful of cases rather than being very widespread. Business value, we feel, is high. I mean, large-scale return on investment examples are still emerging, but we think it can prove its potential, especially with regards to frontline operations. So to give you an example, workers can use their smartphones to maybe capture images of machinery and rapidly diagnose issues. Thereby, they can do some immediate repairs and reduce downtime. And all this requires pulling data from different sources to provide that context to the frontline worker. But also, a lot more use cases are emerging. And we feel in the next 2 to 5 years, multimodal AI is expected to move from launch to growth phase as the market fit is achieved. Any comments here, Christoph, John?
My only comment would be that I see multimodal as the next maturity level of anomaly detection of computer vision. It's taking multiple approaches and bringing them together. So, for instance, we have a customer who, you want to detect anomalies or you want to detect the potential for quality defects. Initially, they would just look at some sensor data coming off a machine. Maybe vibration, maybe pressure or something. Over time, they realized, well, that was interesting, but it really doesn't tell them enough information. So then they started, give me more of the telemetry around the machine. So maybe what's feeding it, what's downstream, is a valve open or closed, in addition to the pressure, for instance. Now what they're seeing is that's interesting, but even better if I can get data from the MES system or the CMMS system and combine that in, because now I know what product we're producing, and now I know who the operator is, and now I know all these other dimensions. And as the AI gets much better, now we can pull in all these different dimensions and really get very precise responses and information on what's causing yield or defects or whatnot. And so I just see it as it's the next evolution of this AI and really bringing it, really kind of achieving your initial slide with the graph, right? Being able to pull all that data together to really learn from it.
Yeah. So it is, John, it is data exploration and it is it is AI exploration. Let's be honest to ourselves. That is really about what you just said, perfectly correct. That says, and it's like you don't know what you don't know, and all of the stuff. So if you build the perfect use case and you try to roll it out and all those things, there's likelihood that you can still do it better. So at the end of the day, it is really about the exploration and having the right tooling in order to actually build those up. So multimodal, by the way, amazing. There's still a lot going on in the industry. Is it agent to agent? Is it having an MCP server everywhere? Is it MCP plus? Is it this or that? All of these stuff ultimately are just tools that will evolve, and quite honestly, they will change. But what it really is again, it is the mindset to come in to say, is like, okay, it's not about predefining what the use case ought to be, but really going into the exploration phase. I mean, quite honestly, look at it, how most of you use ChatGPT or Copilot today. You don't go in there and say, pretty much, I have a question and here's the perfect answer. No, you go through a conversation on all those things. Where you want to get to from a mindset point of view is that you want to go on your use cases in a very similar state, that you want to say, hey, what about this? What about this? Have you looked at this? What is your analysis of that? And all these things. And for that, you need DataOps. You actually need the ability to have this all in at least somewhat of a common lingua franca in order to build those out. And then whether it's multimodal, whether it is a single model, whether it's a small language model, whether it runs in the inner control loop, that's just a definition of what makes most sense. But the journey towards it is what really makes it so attractive, but also dangerous, because there is not this simple process that says, this text box blueprint that says do XYZ and then it's done. It is an exploration as part of it, and multimodal will certainly make this more easy.
That brings us to the last one on AI agents. And then we'll be happy to take questions. So again, AI agents is 1 or 2 steps beyond just automation. So at the core, basically what we are talking about is AI agents are large language models, which empower them with human-like language understanding and generation. We feel in the industrial space, AI agents are currently in the launch stage. Some use cases are emerging for certain things, like maybe work instructions authoring or workflow creation. But given their high-risk environments, which heavy asset industries are operating in, we feel they're still not very widespread. In terms of business value, certainly we think they offer high business value, especially when AI agents integrate with deterministic models like predictive analytics and simulation tools. They combine then dynamic data-driven responses with rule-based outcomes, which are reliable. And we feel the pace of innovation is pretty quick, 2 to 5 years, maybe even less now, they are going to transition from launch to growth phase soon. But we do feel the adoption will vary, especially within industrial facilities. So we do feel that low risk functions like routine administrative workflows will mature quickly for AI agents, because the verification processes are simple, the predictability is simple, it's easier to trust the next steps that's recommended. But maybe for a bit more complex sort of tasks and high risk tasks, there'll always be that human in the loop sort of AI interaction rather than being completely autonomous. Christoph, John, again, any comments on this?
John, go ahead.
Thank you, Christoph. I think AI agents are going to come in fast and going to be transformative. I think AI agents at some level are, 10 years ago, we were all talking about microservices. I think AI agents is actually the implementation of that at some level of now we've got the platforms and the technology to be able to deliver data to an agent, to be able to deploy vast quantities of agents that are highly focused on specific projects or specific tasks, and then to be able to pull that data out and react to that. And I think the next 5 to 10 years are going to be really exciting around, and it's going to be this agents that allow, you potentially will have thousands of them on the factory floor doing very specific things on very specific lines and assets, but they'll really, they are designed to make the humans on the floor superhuman. Right? It's how do we provide the humans the information that they need? How do we offload some of the workload that they're already doing? And how do we make this whole factory run smoother? So I think there's a lot of excitement there, and the infrastructure is finally getting in place to deliver on them. But I'll turn it over to you, Christoph.
No, it's actually funny. Not that we practice this. I always tell our own product teams, and as like an agent is just a container that runs somewhere. And they don't like that at all because it's way more fancy about all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it is that. But the more important aspect here is that you really want to separate out these functions. It's not a question of autonomous robotics versus agents or this versus that. No, what it really happens is there is runtime, there is compliance and security, and there's interface. That is the new modular structure. The interface is the co-pilots or whatever you call them in these days. There's then the interface will change. Regular traditional application models will not survive this fifth industrial revolution. So there's an interface definition. Then there is really the definition of what does the intelligence, that's whether it is an agent, whether it's just a model directly, whether it is an agent rate, whatever it is, it does. And then of course, and a lot of this threat is really about the concerns, as also the challenges with compliance, and not compliance from a pure cybersecurity point of view, but also compliance from a regulatory point of view. So for example, how do I ensure that agent tree or the data processing adheres to a GDPR, to a CRITIS, to a NERC-CIP, and all of those things? What does it actually mean? How do I do a risk-based assessment? How do I put framework, or how do I put boundaries around those things? This is really the next generation of, it's not so much that there will be one thing to focus on, but again, and I think we alluded to it several times, it is a new modular world that says separate those things out. You don't have this massive application any longer that does this ERP. Here is this, and it will be awesome. No, you're tearing that all apart and says, I have modules that focus on certain business functions, and I bring them closer together. And that is pretty much also in here to say, it was like, today it will be an agent. Tomorrow the agent will be front-ended by speech. It will be this, it will be that. It is the modularity that is really the very, let's call it, exciting part of all of it, because you're breaking out of the traditional application model.
Great. I can see we have 3 minutes. We will get back to everybody with their questions, but maybe we can answer one. Well, I hold the power to ask that one question. Okay, here goes. When you say data standardization, you are talking more about the information with context or the specific information from the edge. John, Christoph, maybe one of you can answer that.
I'm not sure how to respond to this. I feel as though data standardization is both of those. It's the information from the edge with context, right? It's how do we standardize that data and deliver that data with the context that's required so that you can put it to use. In fact, one of the things that I often say to people is Industry 3.0 was about enabling the flow of data. Industry 4.0 is about curating the data for the target. So whether it's an agent or whether it's another system running in the cloud or wherever, it's about recognizing that we need to standardize and curate this data for the consumer, not for where it came from. So, I think standardization does that, and that's how we scale. It's the only way to scale.
Yeah. Let me add to this one. It is more the geeky answer to all of this. As you look at data, there is schema and there's information. And at the end of the day, you want to standardize. By the way, standardize is a very big word. You want to create a common understanding of both. You don't want to deal with a whole bunch of different schema, because that just is the bane of our existence. But at the same time, you need to get to the point of where the data is able to self-identify and add information model to it. So in other words, separate it out. That's saying there's the information model and there's a schema that comes with it. The schema is something that just don't spend time on this. This book has been written. It is the information model that comes in. To John's point, it is really about saying, how do I bring this language, or how do I bring the very different languages more into a lingua franca, in order to say, it's like everyone has something else to say, but we know how we actually communicate with each other.
Well, that was on time. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Christoph, John, for this amazing session. And I hope everybody got value out of this webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. And again,
Thank
thanks
you,
for all
Mel.
the questions in the chat.
Thanks for joining us, Christoph. It was a great webinar.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.